you start over there and I'll just like do the elevator.
Hey everyone! Welcome to Lab! Today we'll be doing the law of definite composition with Jared. Definitely, you're right. So the first step is to obtain a dry crucible and cover. Okay. Then you'll add sufficient sand to cover the bottom of the crucible, about 1 scoop of sand. We will then weigh the crucible with the sand and the cover and record the mass. The mass of this is 38.915 grams. Okay. Next, you'll add magnesium pieces to the crucible until the balance indicates that between 0.4 and 0.8 grams of magnesium have been added. So now the mass of the crucible, sand, magnesium, and cover is 39.449 grams. Next, we'll set up a ring stand with a clay triangle on top of the ring and put the crucible with the magnesium, sand, and cover on top of the setup. We can now open the hood sash all the way. We'll light a Bunsen burner away from the ring stand and adjust the flame. Then we can move it under the crucible once the flame has been adjusted. Now we'll heat the partially covered crucible gently for about 5 minutes. And then we will increase the flow to continue heating intensely for 10 minutes. Start gently. Notice that our lid is sideways a little, so it's not completely covering. Now we will intensify the flame because it's been 5 minutes of gentle heating. You can see that our sample has caught on fire. So we'll put the cover back on. Continue to heat. You can see the bottom of the crucible is red and glowing. What is happening now is that the magnesium is reacting with air that enters the crucible to form magnesium oxide. intensely heating, we can tell when the reaction is done when we lift the lid and the magnesium no longer flares up, as you see here. Now we will turn off the flame and allow the crucible to cool on the ring stand for a few minutes. Then we will use tongs to remove the cover and then the crucible to the insulation pad. Now that the crucible is only slightly warm to the touch, we will add about 20 drops of deionized water using a dropper to the magnesium in the evaporating dish. Make sure that all parts of the gray material are dampened. The purpose of the water is to convert any magnesium nitride, which might have formed, into magnesium oxide, so that only magnesium oxide is present at the end of the procedure. Now we can return the crucible to the ring stand and heat again with the cover slightly ajar as we did before. We'll heat gently for 5 minutes and then intensely for 10. After the crucible and cover have cooled to room temperature, we will now weigh the contents. After the second heating, the mass of the crucible, sand, magnesium oxide is 39.686 grams. Once again, we will heat the crucible intensely for 5 more minutes. Notice that you can find the mass of the magnesium that you added in the beginning by subtracting the mass of the crucible, sand, and magnesium from the mass of the crucible and sand by itself. You can also find the mass of just the magnesium oxide by subtracting steps 4 and step 1. Step 4 was the mass of the crucible, sand, and magnesium oxide. And from that, we subtract the mass of just the crucible and the sand to get the mass of magnesium oxide after the second heating. After the crucible and lid have cooled after the third heating, we re-weight it, and the new weight is 39.674 grams, which we record here. Now, using the mass of the crucible, sand, magnesium oxide after the third heating, we can find the final mass of magnesium oxide by subtracting the mass of the empty crucible with sand from the mass in number 6 above. So the mass of magnesium oxide, the third time around, was 0.759 grams. That will be the mass that we use for our official mass of magnesium oxide. Then, using that mass, we can find the mass of oxygen after the third heating by subtracting the mass of magnesium oxide and the mass of magnesium itself. Here is data from other students to include on your report sheet.